Majin Buu isn't just another Dragon Ball villain, he's a walking contradiction. Childlike, unpredictable, and sometimes playful, yet responsible for some of the darkest moments in the entire series. Unlike Frieza or Cell, Buu was never driven by conquest or perfection. He exists purely as chaos, a being whose power doesn't follow normal scaling and whose behavior makes him impossible to read. So today we're breaking down Majin Buu and what makes him so dangerous, how his different forms change the way he fights, and how he remains one of the most unique threats Dragon Ball Z has ever introduced. Long before Goku or Vegeta or even Super Saiyan ever existed, Majin Buu was already clashing with gods. In the ancient past, the Supreme Kais attempted to stop Buu using numbers, coordination, and overwhelming divine power, and one by one they failed. Not only did Buu survive their assault, he began absorbing them. After easily killing the West and North Supreme Kai, the South Supreme Kai was the first to fall victim to his absorption. Then came the Grand Supreme Kai, whose absorption altered Buu even further, stabilizing his personality but leaving some of the strength intact. What's crazy about this isn't just that Buu defeated him, but how he defeated them. The gods of creation couldn't destroy him, so instead they became part of him or died. Absorption isn't just a desperation move for Buu, it's his natural win condition. Whenever an opponent proves dangerous or formidable, Buu doesn't escalate through effort or technique, he simply adds them to himself. Before Majin Buu ever truly establishes himself as the central threat of the entire arc, Dragon Ball Z quietly prepares for the audience how warped the power structure is about to become. The early stages don't rely on massive city destruction or planet-level feats. Instead, the story shows how powerful fighters being funneled into conflicts that only exist to feed Buu's resurrection. From the beginning, the combat itself becomes the mechanism that brings him to life. That process begins with Dabura, Babidi's right-hand enforcer. Goku directly compares Dabura to Cell, instead framing him as a fighter operating at the highest tier of known villains. Every clash he would to participate in is another step towards unleashing Majin Buu. Gohan becomes Dabura's primary opponent, and the fight immediately highlights how much Gohan has slipped since the Cell games. His timing is off, his movements are heavier, and his reaction lacks the sharpness that it once had. Even when he transforms into Super Saiyan 2, the gap between potential and performance is pretty obvious. Dabura pressures him with relentless defense and forces Gohan into a defensive struggle rather than a dominant exchange. Despite this, however, Gohan still manages to trade blows, showing that the foundation of his power is still there. But the larger consequence of the battle has nothing to do with who's winning. The energy released from their clash pours directly into Buu's cocoon. The fight's true purpose isn't revolution, but rather acceleration. Once Buu finally awakens, the story wastes no time redefining that hierarchy. Dabura, the former Demon King who was once stated to be comparable to Cell, is erased almost casually. His magic, his sword, and combat experience mean nothing in front of a being whose body can ignore damage and reshape itself entirely. What should have been a high-level battle instead becomes a demonstration. Dabura lands attacks, but none of them matter, and Buu absorbs the punishment, smiles through it, and ends the fight the moment he feels like it, quite literally consuming him as a cookie. Gohan steps in next and throws everything he has, but he's simply cast aside easily. So much so that people believe that Gohan was actually dead in series for a long time. Even Supreme Kai, a literal god who once fought Buu in ancient times, is completely helpless, once again remaining on top. Effortlessly dispatching Gohan and Dabura, Fat Buu then faces Majin Vegeta, a warrior whose power and ruthless precision make him one of the most dangerous combatants in the entire series. Vegeta enters the battle confident and fueled by his own pride and dark boost Babidi provided, ready to push Buu to his limit. He strikes first, launching an aggressive barrage of punches, kicks, and energy blasts. At first, it seems like Vegeta's speed and skill could give him an advantage, but Buu simply doesn't just endure, he adapts as well. As the fight progresses, Buu begins to anticipate Vegeta's attacks, repeated moves, and every aggressive combo. In this instance, even if Vegeta was overpowering him in the beginning, Majin Buu eventually adapts to this and starts to give him the heavy landing. And as the fight moves on, the battle becomes pretty clear. Despite how strong Vegeta is, Buu is stronger, and his infinite stamina allows him to endure punishment and continue the assault. A warrior who's been seasoned for years and fought in countless battles is then stopped by a literal pink bubblegum, who just can't be taken down. In a final desperate attempt, Vegeta decides to use Final Explosion as a last-ditch effort, unleashing all of his power into one single explosive wave that actually takes him out. And despite doing this, Buu is still able to regenerate. It doesn't destroy him completely, and he just re-emerges right back as the monster he just was. After Vegeta's defeat, the stakes skyrocket. Goku arrives on the battlefield, and his presence is a mixture of reassurance and tension for the audience. Unlike Vegeta, Goku approaches with a combination of confidence and tactical awareness. He immediately recognizes that Fat Buu isn't just another opponent, this is a being who doesn't adhere to normal rules of combat. First, his exchanges are fast-paced, with Goku landing precise blows and testing the limits of Buu's body. But even from the opening attacks, it's clear that Buu is learning, adapting to Goku's rhythm, and absorbing punishment with minimal effort. As the fight escalates, Goku makes the decision to transform into a Super Saiyan 3, pushing his energy and physical output to extreme levels. The transformation itself is a spectacle. His hair glows, his aura flares, and the power surge is immediate. yet Buu responds almost without concern. Each strike Goku lands, each ki blast he unleashes is met with instant regeneration and counterattacks that force Goku to continuously shift his tactic. This fight becomes a dynamic dance of attack and adaptation. Goku tries to overwhelm Buu with sheer energy and speed, but the results are inconsistent. The Saiyan realizes that this battle isn't about trading blows, but anticipating a creature that improves with every hit. One of the most striking moments in this confrontation is how Buu's unpredictability combines with his raw power. Unlike previous opponents, he doesn't follow a linear pattern. He stretches, twists, and contorts his body in ways that make targeting him difficult. Blows that would incapacitate any normal fighter leave him unharmed. Even Goku's most concentrated energy attacks, which would level mountains, are absorbed or dodged with seemingly casual movements. The fight demonstrates that Buu doesn't just survive, he thrives in chaos, and the longer a battle lasts, the more dangerous he becomes. Throughout this battle, it becomes painfully clear that defeating Majin Buu isn't a matter of strength alone. In this fight with Buu, it's the first time he's ever truly pushed, however the fight does end in a draw, so once again, Buu remains undefeated. After pushing back Goku and Vegeta, Majin Buu's next major opponent is base Gotenks, the fusion of Goten and Trunks. At this point, Gotenks has raw energy, incredible speed, and the kind of flashy techniques that usually overwhelm most foes. He enters the fight brimming with confidence, performing his trademark explosive attacks and usual acrobatics that could overwhelm people, but ends up getting completely eviscerated by Buu. In this case, it doesn't even seem like a real fight, and even Majin Vegeta back then put up a better fight than Gotenks did now. Of course, you could argue that Fat Buu is stronger here though. Regardless of that, another W under Buu's belt, one that he achieved pretty easily. One of the most shocking and pivotal battles in the Buu saga is the confrontation between Good Buu, who formed a surprisingly relationship with Mr. Satan, and Evil Buu, the manifestation of pure malice that had been growing inside him all along. This fight is more than a clash of strength, it's a clash of ideologies, personalities, and raw potential. The battle begins with Evil Buu immediately demonstrating that he's faster, smarter, and more ruthless than his counterpart, designed to test Good Buu's defenses while exploiting his inherent weaknesses. Mr. Buu struggles to keep up, attempting to leverage his size, durability, and signature regeneration, but it quickly becomes the sheer resilience that's not enough. But it becomes pretty clear that his resilience isn't enough. Throughout the fight, the contrast between the two become painfully obvious. And the culmination of this battle comes when Evil Buu decisively defeats Good Buu, absorbing him and eliminating his more playful and less dangerous tendencies. Since this is technically Buu on Buu warfare, who won or lost is an interesting thing to talk about. This video is actually referring to the pure version of Majin Buu, the original one, which would be the evil one in this case. He's not quite back to his pure form yet, but this is the one who wins the fight. So once again, as been talking about before, this Buu is victorious, and there are no losses yet for this original Majin Buu. Once Evil Buu absorbs Fat Buu and becomes Super Buu, his power spikes dramatically, making him one of the most dangerous opponents the heroes have ever faced. The next major challenge comes in the form of Gotenks, once again. However, they've just been finished training in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber and they're now ready to take on Super Buu. The fight begins with Gotenks in his base form, a fusion still brimming with raw energy but lacking the refined power of his Super Saiyan transformations. Even in this form, Gotenks is a step up from his previous opponent. However, the base form clash immediately highlights Buu's new evolution. Super Buu moves with intelligence and precision, reading Gotenks' attacks and countering in ways that Fat Buu never did. As the battle intensifies, Gotenks eventually powers up into Super Saiyan 3, pushing the limits of his energy, speed, and combat technique. The transformation applies his attacks to unprecedented levels, forcing Super Buu to react more aggressively than ever before. Now the fight escalates into a dazzling spectacle of energy blasts, rapid exchanges, and acrobatics. Gotenks' playful confidence fuels flashy risk maneuvers like the Galactic Donuts and the Super Ghost Kamikaze attack. Yet Buu's adaptability remains unwavering. Despite the extreme power escalation, the battle doesn't have a decisive winner. Gotenks fights with skill and creativity that pushes Super Buu close to the edge of a challenge, yet the fusion's energy has its limits. Eventually, the fusion timer wears off. While some might consider the defusion a technical loss for Gotenks, the battle itself demonstrates that even the combined force of two young warriors as Super Saiyan 3 cannot definitively overwhelm Buu's unique combination of regeneration, adaptability, and raw destructive capability. This fight kind of mirrors Fat Buu's fight with Goku, where a Super Saiyan 3 level combatant was only able to equal him out but not beat him in the fight. So once again, Buu's streak continues on. After Gotenks' fusion ends, Super Buu quickly turns his attention to the next challenger, Ultimate Gohan. Having unlocked the full potential given to him by Old Kai, Gohan enters the fight with his own level of raw strength, speed, and precision that immediately puts him above most previous opponents. From the very first clash, it's clear that Buu is facing a fighter who can actually keep up with him. Ultimate Gohan lands blows with power and accuracy that make even Super Buu stagger, a sight no one had seen before in the entire saga. For the first time, Buu was on the defensive, struggling to anticipate the precise, overwhelming attacks of a fully powered Gohan. The battle is intense and relentless. Gohan combines devastating punches, precise energy blasts, and rapid movement to dominate the fight, pushing Buu back repeatedly. Super Buu's regenerative abilities allow him to recover, but even regeneration cannot fully compensate for the speed and efficiency of Gohan's assault. Despite this advantage, however, the fight never actually reaches a clear conclusion. And the reason mostly is because Buu forms a plan. He explodes himself and then later returns with a strategic idea in mind. While I would agree that Gohan dominated Buu and surely would have won if the fight continued, it simply didn't, which means that Buu doesn't have the Gohan loss on his jacket. After absorbing Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks, Super Buu becomes exponentially more dangerous. The fusion provides him not only with raw power and speed, but also with Gotenks' skill and his creativity. With this new boost, Buu is no longer the unpredictable yet manageable opponent that Ultimate Gohan initially faced. Now he's integrated the tactical mind of Piccolo and the flashy techniques of Gotenks, creating a fighter who is faster, stronger, and far more versatile than before. The stakes are immediately clear as Buu turns his attention back to Ultimate Gohan, who had previously held his own against him. From the opening exchanges, it's evident that the balance has shifted entirely. In the anime, Gohan seems to keep up with Buu for a certain period of time, but in the manga, he's immediately decimated. The battle reaches its climax as Buu finally overpowers Ultimate Gohan, landing repeated, devastating blows that leave him reeling. The young Saiyan fights valiantly, but the combination of Buu's raw power and enhanced skill just proves to simply be too much. The next fight that he has is against Super Saiyan 3 Goku, and from the start it's clear that the balance of power has shifted. Goku in Super Saiyan 3 is able to land some blows against Buu and doesn't immediately get overwhelmed. But just as it seems good for Goku, it gets bad. There's even one point in time where he's literally bent over Buu's knee. This fight is actually similar to the one that Buu had with Ultimate Gohan. There's no decisive conclusion here as he doesn't get to finish off Goku and he actually defuses in the middle of the fight. However, it's pretty clear that if this fight were to keep going on, Goku would inevitably lose, which is one of the reasons that he wanted to fuse with Gohan in order to beat him. Now, after absorbing Ultimate Gohan, Super Buu evolves into Buhan, and the victims of this one encounter is Vegeta and Goku. Though formidable both in their own right, they stand no chance against Buhan. Any attacks that they actually land on him do no meaningful damage, and Buhan is simply tired of them. Another fight that doesn't actually have a conclusion, but it's pretty clear that Goku and Vegeta was going to lose. This prompts them to need to fuse into Vegito, the ultimate warrior. Once Goku and Vegeta fuse into Vegito, the balance of power shifts dramatically. Buhan, who had dominated every battle up to this point, suddenly finds himself facing a fighter whose strength, speed, and tactical skill are far beyond anything he's previously encountered. From the very first exchanges, it's clear that Vegito is in complete control, especially when looking at the manga version where he immediately turns into a Super Saiyan. In the anime, him and Buhan actually have a nice competitive clash in their base forms. Throughout the fight, Vegito doesn't just effectively humiliate Buu, every attempt Buu makes to land is counterattacked, parried, or dodged, followed by playful encounters. It's very obvious that Vegito wanted Buu to absorb him, and eventually he did. And despite Vegito's apparent domination, this technically isn't a loss for Buhan. Of course, he would have lost the initial fight and Vegito at any moment could have defeated Buu. But because that wasn't his intention, he basically didn't. And because of that, once again, Majin Buu has no losses on his record, after fighting Earth's most powerful warriors, and even one that was combined of Earth's two strongest warriors themselves. After Vegito separates and the people he had absorbed are released, Goku and Vegeta are left to face regular Super Buu once again. This is the version of Buu that retains his terrifying adaptability and regenerative qualities, but without the additional power and skills from Gotenks and Gohan. However, even stripped down, he remains a formidable opponent. Goku and Vegeta, despite performing well, aren't actually able to beat him, which is mainly due to the fact that they're inside of his body, in which he is invincible. However, this doesn't take away from the fact that they did not defeat Super Buu. But the saga doesn't end there. After his rampage at Super Buu, he eventually reverts back to Kid Buu, his pure form. In this state, Buu confronts Goku, Vegeta, Hercule, and Mr. Buu, individually defeating each of them with brutal efficiency and speed. It isn't until the universe itself rallies behind a final desperate measure that Buu's reign of chaos is finally brought to an end. Goku gathers energy from every corner of existence to create a massive spirit bomb, channeling the power, hope, and life force of countless beings into a single attack, forming the universal spirit bomb, which Buu isn't able to combat against. However, during this confrontation, Goku did wish for him to be reborn as a good person before he actually even killed him, pretty much securing the fact that he would be resurrected again. So, did he really lose?